your support.
How many do I need, Mike?
How you doing, Mike?
I
I get one of these days he's gonna tell me. You've been called worse? I mean it in the sweetest way possible. I have. Although I can read that one better.
There, little Robbie there, if you don't mind.
We'll see you morning. Okay.
For now.
For now, okay, all right.
Well, let's see.
I'm on standby. I'm on
standby.
standby.
Anything else after that?
Okay.
We're going to go ahead and get started in the meeting. The meeting, as last time, should run hopefully about an hour, not too much longer. Again, we're going to keep 2 feet apart. Cell phones, if you would not mind putting them on silent or something, and respect everybody's own opinion. Everybody has their own opinion. And just because you might not like theirs, respect it anyway. And everybody has an equal voice. To begin with, if you've looked over our last minutes, everybody should have one on the last meeting. Let's see, we came up with some things that we wanted to go over. The purpose was to improve overall safety, improve communication, create a positive work environment, provide a pleasant travel experience, and then open discussion about pay, bus chain of command, bus discipline form, trips, and where we are at this time. So would anybody else like to begin with Daniel? We could start with the bus discipline chain of command if we want to start there and go over it. Everybody has, I think, a copy of the bus conduct form. I hope this is currently the new conduct form that has been created, and you should also have a copy of the process in which I lost mine. Here it is. The referral chain of command. Everybody should have one of these also. You can hear me, can't you? Okay. So would y'all like to discuss this chain of command? See if it would work for you or. Oh, back here. Sorry. Would anybody like to just start the discussion on the referral chain of command? Maybe one of the principals.
Well, it's I mean, Mike sent out an email and just kind of a suggestion on how the chain of command should go, just to kind of streamline the process. And I've had to do it a couple times, and I think it's worked well. Key is just in a timely manner. I try to handle that just as quick and as professionally as possible, so that there's no wait time in there, and I think that's key. And so, like I said, I've done it a couple of times, and it's been effective as far as I know. And also, just the principals are out there in the mornings for the most part, and I think that's probably the best way to handle discipline initially, is just being there kind of at the point of it happening. This morning I had someone that bus driver that needed to meet me, and we talked it over, and we're able just to take care of a lot of it right there. So I think it's working well thus far.
Robbie, do you feel that it might be helping, or have you had it?
like that.
Referral.
Bus
Have you had any
referrals.
bus referrals this year?
Yeah, we've got a few, I guess, somehow. I mean, my assistants take care of most of it. I'm trying to think.
Well, I don't have many,
Yeah.
very few really, but I had one the other day, and it was gone through the chain of command. It was taken care of that day. And Ms. Evans called me back, and we worked out a solution that was fair for the student, and I thought was good, and we got it done. And that's all basically I think the drivers can ask for. Just something quick, just get it done. Get it done. Don't leave it hanging over your head. Just let it get it gone.
Probably one of the biggest changes on that, in the past, some had either faxed them or some had emailed. We just wanted to be consistent, the same process for everybody. The thing with faxes is we can't always tell if they're sent. We may get a thing and sometimes they're easier, I guess, to get displaced than the emails that are always there. You can go back and find if needed. So that was probably the biggest change just on that command. It's the same thing for each of the schools. So principals know where they can locate them and how to respond once that consequence is handed out.
Guess my next question would be, is the bus conduct form, is that working for?
The bus conduct form, is that working for bus drivers or as far as what you're filling out and everything?
I like this one better. This is a much improved. It's
Yeah.
more, it's laid out better. It's easier to follow, and it's more kind of cut and dry. There's no,
Yeah.
I like the layout of it better from my end.
This one gives the infractions and the consequences,
Right.
or possible consequences.
Yeah.
This is what's good.
Yep.
On this form.
This one's more geared towards bus behavior also versus the behavior in the school, the consequences in the school. So this one is geared, or supposed to be geared, more for the bus. So that's what I think a lot of people like about it.
I would like to make a recommendation on the form. Sorry, I'm pretty loud. but- I would like to make a recommendation on the form, and that is just somewhere toward the top that we have some boxes where they have to just look up and see if the child has an IEP or a 504 plan, because that does end up playing a role in that discipline process. So I do think that would be helpful.
So 504 and what?
IEP and 504, or even in referral.
Yeah, because that does change how that situation or how that consequence is dealt with.
Absolutely.
Ms. Sharp, do you mind to just briefly mention like how that does affect? Because I
Sure,
have
the way it
some
affects
questions
is
around that.
if a student so basically a student with an IEP or 504 plan, you have up to 10 days of suspension that, just to kind of boil it down, you have up to 10 days of suspension to utilize throughout the school year to address behavior concerns. If a child with an IEP or a 504 plan is put off of the bus and they also miss school, it counts as one of our 10 days of suspension that's been used. And if a child has special transportation on their IEP, they cannot be denied transportation. We have to figure out a different way to address that discipline situation if it's part of their IEP. Does that help?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
But Tracy, the question
Yes.
has arisen, if the child does not have special transportation on his IEP, which is a special needs bus, correct?
Correct.
If he is on a regular.
Well, not always. They could be on a regular route,
Okay, but,
but it would be on their IEP, yes, sir,
okay.
if they had special
Okay.
transportation.
Say that it does, and there is a continuing problem
Mhm,
with that student,
mhm.
what
We need to have an
options?
ARC meeting and get everybody at the table. We've had about 4 of those where the bus drivers, Mr. Abel, everybody's been at the table to discuss the IEP, and we'll discuss the goals that the student has and the behavior intervention plan and what's in place. Are we using a bus contract? Are we reteaching those behaviors? That type of thing. So really the piece that I think was probably missing, that Mr. Light brought it up last time actually, and I was so glad that he reminded us of that thought process, And that is, once everybody gets at the table and has that conversation, I think that's helping a lot. It's not to say that we don't end up coming up with ways to address it. It just has to go through the ARC committee.
Right.
Yeah. Does that help?
Yes, it does. It
Okay.
just,
Okay.
it seems frustrating to the driver sometimes because it doesn't seem like things happen quick enough.
Absolutely. And I understand that because, well, yes, that makes sense. Yes. Hopefully, we're gonna get that, we're gonna make progress in that.
And I'm glad you mentioned Mr. Lackey. He texted me for about 5 o'clock and said he was gonna be unable to get an emergency come up. So he expressed his condolences for not being able to make it, but he did let me know what was going on there. Probably in talking with this report of bus conduct, one thing that, we've been trying to have more conversations with principals and, kind of being the go-between with the drivers is sometimes on the level of infraction, sometimes there might be a little bit of gray area right there. So sometimes what one person feels like it may be, another person may not always agree. So sometimes we have to look at that and kind of debate on what level does this actually fall under? And like I said, those are the kind of the recommended consequences, but sometimes there's other factors in there that may need to be looked at as well. But it does give us a good, framework to work off of when it comes to those behavior resolutions also.
In cases of a gray area deal, which we talked about one earlier today, would it be possible for the driver and the DA or whoever wrote the referral to be in on the conversation about the consequences? Do you think that would be a good?
Yes. I think so.
Are you talking about all students or?
No, it's
students with a problem?
just ones that like Mike talked about there, where maybe the write-up wouldn't go along with the behavior resolution. It's like a recommended sentence. It doesn't really fit. It's kind of in a gray area. That could be something that the driver and the DA, whoever did the referral, did the write-up, could meet with the principal or whatever and kind of work out something equitable. Like there was a case on my bus where Ms. Evans and I worked out something. There was a case on my bus where the actual consequence was more severe than we both thought was equitable. So we worked it out, and if something like that could be done with cases that are questionable. Now, I mean, you've got somebody that's duking it out on the bus, they ought to pay the full price of the consequence. But if it's something a little different, that consider gray area.
Anybody else have anything concerned? So the form that's being worked out just needs the IEP and 504 added to it.
I have a question. I guess for maybe Ms. Sharp.
Okay.
The IEP and the 504, those are the kids that are in the PASS program?
Not
Is that-
always.
Okay. The kids that are in the PASS program, is that something totally different than these two then?
No, they're
No,
IEPs.
they're
They're
also-
IEPs. The PASS program is just a service that's provided to the student.
Gotcha,
So it's not it's just it's a service.
gotcha. So do y'all is there still like PASS coaches in the schools and all?
Yes, every school has a PASS program.
Okay, and not every bus does.
Right.
They have 0.
Correct.
So my question is, what are the drivers, what are they supposed to do?
Well, all the teachers have completed the ECE one-pagers to give feedback and advice to all the bus drivers. Mr. Abel has that information. So all of that information is set to come to the bus drivers to tell them, here's the challenges, here are the difficulties, and here are some strategies to use to work with that student. Because sometimes it's just a matter of simply knowing what that student's needs are so that they're addressed and handled a little differently. And so that should be, they should be getting that information. Do you think next week, maybe, Mr. Abel,
definitely,
early next
definitely,
week?
yeah.
So that would be able to help them with that. Yeah. I mean, like the coaches in the school, they're not with them, they just monitor. So like.
If there's an issue, they go to the class and they take the child out of the class? Is
Not
that correct?
always.
Not always?
No, they just monitor. They don't stay. Occasionally they do get removed.
Right.
And that actually is what's been used as part of a consequence for some of the bus situations. And then we're working on the reteaching of expectations. The other thing I know that Mr. Abrams been having a conversation with someone about is positive behavior supports for the bus and having a consistent, here's what it all means. Because the rules are one piece, but teaching the kids what those actually mean are another thing. Because if you start looking at buses, different individuals have different, they have the same rules posted, but the expectations are different from bus to bus. So if you're a child and you get on this bus, you might get in trouble for that. But if you get on this bus, they're like, it's okay, no worries. That's the expectation. And so that's another process that's going to be worked through is how do we establish those consistent expectations on every bus, no matter what bus you're on? And then how do we make sure we're teaching those exact expectations to the students so that it's clear for them, so that they know exactly what to expect no matter where they are. And I think that'll help a whole lot with the students.
Are we good in this area now, or? And we can always bring up issues down the road at our meetings if we're having concerns or something's not working that we should be able to add or take away.
Absolutely.
One of the next issues, well, it's not an issue. Tommy brought at the paper as to the requirements of bus drivers. I thought it was good that everybody would be able to see what a bus driver goes through the training. To let you know.
I've been through that very recently.
I hear you. Oh, y'all probably know.
I don't think you see us decrease that minimum.
We try to make that a big part of our 8-hour update.
But like when they get started,
I will talk to what I know. I'll be honest with you, Tommy probably can speak to it more because he's kind of worked through that process. I know that at the superintendent's, the central, what is the cooperative election, CKC, they, at their superintendent's cadre they had last week, they had Alyssa Hanley from the Department of Transportation from Katy, spoke to them just about, I guess, the backlog or the hoops that drivers have to go through in order to get credentialed and how that's really slowing down the process for being able to get not just in our district, but every district. So they're really trying to work with the Kentucky State Police on that testing part of that, how they can kind of be bumped to the front of that line. If they show up and there's some misinformation, instead of just sending them home and having to come back another day, how they can make sure that they work through that and allow them to be able to take that test. Basically, as you know, they've gone to about 30 regional offices across the state. So anybody wanting to do that now has to go to either Columbia or E-Town to take the permit test to start with. Basically, you're competing with every other 16-year-old in 8 or 10 counties to try to get an appointment in the first place. You've got to go online at 8 o'clock on Monday morning to schedule your appointment. Right now, those appointments are about 3 weeks out before you can even take the test. And they have to have that CDL permit before they can ever start practicing or going over the theory of practice and the actual driving portion of that CDL training. So they're really looking at different ways to streamline that process, because right now, I would say it is every bit of a 4 to 6 week process to get through that CDL. And that's something that, we've talked a little bit about is how can we bring people on board to hopefully allow them to start earning, an income so that they're not waiting. We do pay 40 hours for that training, but they have to be with us for 3 months or 90 days before they receive that, because we were having people who were just taking advantage of the training and not staying in district for, a month or so before they went and used that CDL for another driving career, basically. So that was the logic behind that, but we're looking how we can bring at a minimum as a substitute aid, or maybe even as a driver assistant, so they have opportunity to be on that bus and see different perspectives before they actually sit behind the wheel and do the driving portion of that as well. And that way it does. Number one, it gets their insurance, that process started, because you have to be an employee for a month, you know, 3 months before you're eligible for your insurance. And that's a big draw in this profession, to be quite honest. And it also allows them to be able to bring in some type of income, so they're not just sitting there. Some of our retirees and other people can afford to do that. People coming in off the street looking for a job, they really can't wait 4 to 6 weeks before they get a paycheck. So that's something I think that may help. With that, I would hope as well. We'll pass it down to Tom. He's our expert with getting and organizing all the paperwork once we go through this process.
Yeah, it's very frustrating because it seems like that with the nationwide shortage of bus drivers, it's not just Kentucky, not just Marion County, it's all over the country. I mean, I get magazine articles. There's states that have talked about bringing in the National Guard to assist in student transportation. So it's critical. And it's frustrating because it seems like every time a new regulation comes down from the state that we're required to follow, it just pushes you back further. It takes longer, it does whatever. This sheet that you got here, this lists the minimum requirements by the state and by our district to become a Kentucky bus driver. We figure actually 40 hours for someone that has never driven a big piece of equipment, anything bigger than a car. 40 hours that we pay is very optimistic. It's according to the person. Some pick it right up, and others, you know, I would doubt whether I would really want my grandchild to be on someone just had 40 hours training to drive a school bus, but that's neither here nor there. It just takes a minimum of this to do it. There's some things that we have kind of talked about and thrown out. Maybe the possibility of advertising to attract current CDL holders. They would already have the ability to drive an oversized vehicle, an overlane, whatever, so that part of it would be cut to a minimum. All we would need to do is just do the classroom work, the minimum requirements for the state, and that would cut it by half anyway, or maybe even more than that. So that's just something that we've talked about to do. Then there's other things that we have kind of a problem with. The expense to the applicant to get this process going. First, it's got to have a CDL physical, so you're looking at anywhere from $75 to $100. You've got to go to Elizabethtown and for a background check, that's $53.50. You got to go online for the CAN check, that's $10. You got to go online and get the MVR, that's another $5.50. Now, some of that stuff can be reimbursed in time, but if somebody's out here looking for a job, needing a paycheck, are they going to be able to come up with that right then? So this is something that we need to talk about and to consider. I don't know what we could do. Maybe maybe on the physical we could pay for it. I don't know. I'm just that'd be a board decision. But there's things that need to be done to kind of smooth this process along. Anybody got any questions on the process for getting the CDL license? Oh, and by the way, they're changing some of the teaching requirements, and this will fall on trainers like Kenny, Brad, me. February 7th of next year, they're redoing the way that the license must be taught. It's going to be entry-level driver training requirements. So it's very specific on what has to be trained, how it has to be done, and they want anybody that's going to do anything, update their CDL, get a CDL update. They would recommend it be done before February 7th, so you can avoid some of that. Just more hoops to jump through.
one other thing I'll say is in regard to recruiting, is we have purchased 40 ads, 40 radio spots with 100.5 WLSK, I think, that are scheduled to come out any time now. We tried paper before, we've done some other things, so we're hoping that may create awareness. We felt what the pay increase that was approved there in August, that this would be a great opportunity to promote that and get that out there to the public. So that has been with them for probably 2.5, 3 weeks now. So Mr. Simpson is checking to see exactly when those should start to air, but I expect any time now.
How about advertising as far as Facebook and the newspaper?
We do have things on social media. I can make sure that Mr. Simpson continues to, we have done some, I don't know what's currently posted right now, but we have done that periodically in the past, but I'll make sure that we have a push there. I will say KDE does have nice pamphlets and different things that you can customize to your district to help create that awareness. So that's something I can get with him about also. We did discuss, because you can buy ads on Facebook and some of those things, which venue may attract the most people. At this time, currently, we're going to try the radio ads to see what impact that may have. That may be another avenue we want to go, where we're doing the ads that show up when you log on to your Facebook page or some of those other social media outlets as well.
I can say as a previous, worker, the board used to pay for physicals and then the driver got reimbursed, afterwards, so.
What's the cost of the physical?
It's anywhere from
From
75 to 100, 125 when you get it. I think
And you can't get it at your regular doctor, you have to go.
they have to be a CDL or
Yes.
a DOT registered provider. We try to use industrial choice healthcare. We seem to be able to get them in quicker down there. Dana does a good job. We also use them to take a drug, pre-employment drug testing collection. So they see, but I think Mike, do you know exactly what they charge?
I want to say $75 for the physical, and then maybe $20 for the, I think it's 75 for the physical, and then $20 for the drug test, basically, the specimen samples.
So we try to send them down there when we can, but others, you know, they have the option to go to their own. Okay. They have the option to go to their own physician. Anybody that's a licensed or approved DOT provider. It can even be a chiropractor. As long as they're registered with the Department of Transportation. So.
Just a question, is that something our nurses could get?
The practitioners can do a CDL. Oh, that's right, we do. We would have to work it out probably with the State Department in order to get that through, and that's something that we can look at. So we probably need to make note of that one. Yeah, practitioner.
Because that would cut the travel.
I know one of the emergency care places here in Lebanon does do CDL, because I get mine done every year. So that's something we can also, if we can't do it here, we can also look at.
Well, that's what industrial choice, that's,
Is that the one?
yeah, that's one behind Wendy's.
Okay.
Yeah,
that's one.
Dana Logs.
Thank you. Any more questions on?
I got a quick, on the advertising part, does that have to be board approved before anybody in the district can advertise?
Of course, it'd have to be, you know, it couldn't be overwhelming amount, you know, but no, all the things. I'm not sure if you guys have a budget.
We've got a budget, you know, that we work with through that. And I felt this was pretty reasonable for what we paid, for what we were going to get. It's just a matter of trying to make sure we get them out there as soon as possible. It'll be a good time to start promoting that bottom line, consider it better.
To address something else that Joey brought up about the board maybe getting the nurses. some of the nurses certified or registered. Every driver has to have a repeat physical every year on a yearly basis. So, I mean, this is an ongoing thing, even if they're, you know, they're already hired. The normal CDL physical lasts 2 years, except for a Kentucky bus driver. It has to be done every year. So if the nurses or one of the nurses or whatever could go through the process, the registration process, it would be not only convenient to save the board some money.
But we don't overload them as well.
Not right now.
So are we all good on this one right now? Just what we'll do is look into, CDL, see what nurses or practitioners and stuff is available, what we can get at a reasonable
Right.
price. So we'll have somebody looking into those.
I don't know what there's, it's all written out in the law about what the qualifications or what's required to be certified or to be enter the registry, I guess it is. It's all put out there, so someone wants to look into it.
It is, especially if they can save us money, so.
Yep.
The next item is, let's let you bring up PA concerns that you were having. So I'll hand out a paper to everybody to look over. You don't have this one. It was just brought to my attention. I thought this was something that parents were required to do anyway, is bring the child to the bus stop. Okay,
We just need to be reminded.
Exactly.
It may need something where we.
we can get that out in our newsletters and internet spots and stuff.
What would be the best way?
I'm sorry, we normally don't do this, but we will.
Michelle, do you know if LES was told about this? Sir, the principal administration,
That's what child.
said this. I'm just asking, if you don't, I just don't know.
I don't
if they-
know.
Okay,
Cindy Belcher is the one that
Yeah.
approached me, and that's what got it in there.
I'm just curious, I just didn't know
Sure.
where, we don't, but I think it's a good reminder for all schools, but I know that was labeled specifically, so. Oh, that was me.
I'm sorry.
No.
It's okay. I thought, well, maybe there's an expectation and I missed it. My apologies.
No, my question was, in that first concern, was the administration made aware of this? Because it specifically states a school, but even though I think this is a good reminder for all schools, I just wanted to know if that was something, are there twofold addressing twofold things in this one?
It was my understanding that it had been addressed on multiple occasions. And I understand sometimes parents just don't really take it to heart. Usually we don't have a lot of problem after the first 2 or 3 weeks of preschool. Oh, thank you. I'm sorry. Usually, we don't have much problem after the first 2 or 3 weeks of preschool. The regulations say that there has to be a person registered in writing at the school to meet the bus to receive that preschooler. You can't just let them go with anybody. They have to be registered. It takes a while sometimes for mom and dad to realize that they can't be stuck in line at Walmart or watching a soap opera or whatever and call Aunt Jenny to go meet the bus. That doesn't work. Now, if Aunt Jenny is registered to meet the bus, that's a different story, but usually the first couple, 3 weeks, it's kind of off and on, but after that, it usually smooths out. But this was a concern that Cindy brought up, and the way she talked, it had been addressed. I don't know if it's the same parents or not. She didn't say, but that was the reason that was put in there.
Thank you.
I think most of these have been addressed on their referral forms, so if we have any more, we can look at them at our next meeting. Okay, our next one, which one?
Okay.
The next one we're gonna go over is pay. Pay was increased as far as daily pay has been increased $2 an hour, plus 2% that you had gotten, all drivers had gotten, or employees, classified employees. Certified and also.
Appreciate it.
Yes, thank you. The next one you wanted to discuss was extracurricular trips. I'm gonna hand out some papers that were brought to me.
Now, this is something that, Tommy had kind of worked on, to be honest with you, do some consultation with some of the drivers, and then it was from my understanding. Here's my big concern with extracurricular trips. I'm gonna be very honest. We've had some people who've done trips for 20, 25 plus years. They've driven certain sports programs, certain activities, maybe when other people didn't necessarily want to. And I have a hard time taking some of those trips from some of those individuals who've done a great job, and they've done it for, several numbers of years. I'll be quite honest, I feel like we'll lose drivers. If we take some of those opportunities away from some of those drivers, I feel like we will lose drivers, because that's something they enjoy, something they've come to expect. It's part of their livelihood as far as what they count on. Now, if you look at the number of drivers and what's assigned, there is some flexibility in what may be able to be assigned. But I think, first of all, we need to go through and kind of identify that certain sports, this person, as long as they want to continue to do it because they have been doing it for 20 years, they need to continue to do that sport or that activity in particular. Now, there are a lot of other, what I call more fringe things that may not be as consistent. Some smaller sports, maybe like a golf, a cross country, some things that are a little more sporadic as far as when and where they may be going, and even our field trips that happen. Last year, we didn't have a lot of field trips just due to COVID and the shutdown. Now we are having more students who are traveling, who are going to college campuses, who are getting out more than we did last year. I think those activities, we do need to find a way that can be balanced out and everybody has an opportunity to participate on those trips. I have kind of got an idea and talked to some drivers as far as what are some things that they would really want to be able to keep. And what, would they be willing, or can they kind of part with it and open up so that it is more equitable, everybody has an opportunity to be able to have a chance to take some of those trips. So what we would propose on those type trips is basically, we have a sheet, and we would start based on seniority, where it's basically a spreadsheet. And when a trip's available, we would go down that list on seniority, and those people would have first opportunity. If they say no, we go to the next person on the list, and they would go to the bottom of the list. And kind of go down the list until we have somebody to take the trip, and we would continue to do it kind of in that order. Once again, if they turn the trip down, then they move down to the bottom of the list, and we continue to go. My goal, we would do that for any of these extracurricular trips that we have. And, I was gonna say, if they can't go, they go to the bottom, and then each week we repost that list. The first list will be based on seniority, then it would go by basically who turns down trips, and that list would be updated. I don't want to make it something that's overwhelming for Terry, so I think once a week we could post that spreadsheet in the break room or in the common room there where everybody can see and kind of know where we're at that week on that trip, so they would know when to expect, or if they should expect phone calls that week to give them a better idea. Also, I don't think it was a last minute trip, because some of those do spring up kind of last minute, that a driver should be penalized because some have children, they have other things, you know, they would have to account for, that they may not have the flexibility. So if there's less than a 24-hour trip, then I think they should not really be penalized. They should keep their standing, and it would just go to the next person on that list. So if you kind of look over that and see if you all have any questions about that. But basically, we're looking at starting by seniority and using a running list there for those trips.
Okay, so what we're looking at here is what you put together. what,
Well, Tom,
Tom,
I
okay,
typed
I'm
it
sorry.
up, but Tom is the one who kind of had.
Tom, you want to talk about what the drivers have said about this?
Okay, it's been a point of contention about the trips and the way they're gathered out. Anybody that Kenny can tell you, Mike can probably tell you too, before COVID, the trip sheet that Terry keeps on her desk was full. I mean, they'd have to write in the margin sometime about the number of trips, from field trips, class trips, to the pumpkin patch, to actors theater. I mean, the whole gamut, plus your sports trips. So, but COVID kind of changed all that. So that kind of shallowed the gene pool, I guess, so to speak, as far as the trips go. But what they did back pre-COVID was the drivers that were dependable, that were able to take the trips and would do it, got the majority of the trips, just because of the sheer number out there. I know when Ms. Thompson was secretary up there, nothing would make her much madder than to come in on the day of a trip and a driver throws a sheet down on there and says, oh, something's come up, I can't go. And then she's got to scramble around and find it. So this kind of led to the deal of who was dependable, who took the trips, they would get the trips. And that's kind of carried over to this. This is why some of them that you see on there have the trips. And like Mike talked about, I give a good example, Mike Moffin. He's had basketball, he's had several other sports on there and had them for years. He would like to keep some of those. Now, he indicated to me the other day that he might be flexible on some of the lesser, like a band trip or something like that. So what we talked about was maybe meeting with the I guess the grandfathered in drivers and throwing it up to them and say, hey guys, you know, time's a little hard right now, can you help us out? And I think they actually would do that. But that's the reason why they were given the trips, because they could do it. First of all, they could do it, and they would do it. They were dependable. They didn't have to worry about it. Another thing that's on the list here that would be a kind of a little concern would be if the driver that's up for a trip cannot get back off his route in time to take that trip. There's some of these trips that have to leave early. Some of them like to leave at 4 o'clock. Well, there's not that many routes that get back at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So that has to be taken into consideration. So what we talked about was if the person that's scheduled to take the trip or due to take the trip can't make it back, then it goes to the next one down that is available time-wise, but that person is not penalized either on it. If he can't get back in time, if it's not his fault, then he keeps his position on the board. But anytime a person accepts a trip and then turns it back in, then they go to the bottom of the board, just like they completed the trip. Any other questions or anything on that, Joey?
Generally sign up for trips.
Okay, and that's another thing too. Forgive me for taking so long. I get kind of carried away sometimes. I told some of the people that talked to, you know, we've had sign-up sheets for extra trips. Shuttles are a big thing that we do during the day. We've got shuttles that go to the night academy, back to the high school, to the ATC, or to the Tel Center in Washington County. At our 8-hour update, we had 2 people sign up for the Marion County, the night academy shuttles, and 1 person sign up for the Tel Center. So, you know, it's kind of hard to, you know, make a case for people that wanting trips when they don't.
But those are day trips, where some people may have other day jobs.
Yeah, but that's part of it too, though. I mean, it's, but there's other times, there's other trips, even night trips that Terry has scrambled to try to find people to take. So, but I like the proposed trip assignment plan. I think it puts everything out there in the open on the board, and everybody's got input on it. And,
So can I clarify, so that list is gonna stay that list until you get to the bottom, so potentially brand new driver at one point in time may get the chance if they
Yeah,
want.
that list will be
Yeah.
updated. We're
It's a
starting by
rotating.
priority to start,
Right.
then we'll rotate wherever other next week, wherever we left off on Friday, that person will bump to the top of the list starting on Monday. I don't want Terry to have to do a list every day, bottom line, it's just more headache, but if we could update it, and I've talked to her, she would be fine with hosting that weekly, probably Monday morning, midday one day, where, all right, guys, these are the people, so you might know to expect a phone call if the trip's available this week. That's kind of where you are, so everybody kind of has a good opportunity to see where they are in standing on that list, and really know that it's being updated.
So when you talk about a rotation, you're not going back to the original list, you're going to the new list.
Yeah,
with
we're
somebody who's
starting.
on top could be somebody with very little experience, but that's just because that's where they're on top.
Yes, ma'am.
I'll give you an example. In the trucking industry, we had a dispatch board or dispatch wheel. And it's just like a big pinwheel. You've got truck numbers all the way around through there. You start at the top, you pull one, then that one goes to the next click and just keeps going around. Everybody gets an opportunity. So this is the same principle there.
Is there any way to tie the shuttles into that also?
Yeah, there should be.
Make the shuttles available too for anybody?
Yeah. I mean, Terry's looking for shuttle drivers every day. So,
But you're also saying, like, the boys' basketball team, it will stay the same driver until, and I understand that because you have people who are very dependable and that have been doing it for a very long time before I even left.
Well, and I think they've incorporated that as part of their livelihood. They anticipate that into their living wages and things else because they have been doing it for so long. And sometimes when they started doing it, nobody else was interested in it. So they've kind of been through the hard times and the good times. But I do understand what we're saying too, when things are available, we want it to be a system in place for some of those other special trips or field trips or those other things, so that even new people come in, don't have to wait 5, 6, 7 years before they can get any of those opportunities for themselves. So this would hopefully spread some of that out more, I'll say evenly, but equitably, hopefully.
So when it comes up, when they retire, that will come open for whomever. Possibly.
We're not gonna retire. We're gonna have to line it up. Don't bring up that thought of option.
I was given, and you don't have these, I was given a rate, an hourly rate from around counties. We're talking Barstown, Bowl, Campbellsville, Casey, Danville, LaRue, Nielsen, Taylor, Washington. I can tell you that Barstown, Nielsen, and Taylor are on a regular hourly rate. And then the rest of them are a flat rate, and the average is $13.29 an hour right now.
Trips.
It's on trips, and we're just talking trips now. And Marion County right now is $13.50 a flat hourly rate. That is what it is at right now. As a previous driver, it's good, it's a good pay, and I understand everybody wants a raise and everything. And I'm not saying you won't get one or you will get one, but what I am saying is I took many a trips, and I know there's downtime and you're just walking around finding nothing to do. And at $13.50 an hour, just walking around, looking around, doing that, that's good pay. But I do understand the other side of this too. So everybody's trying to make a living for a family. So that is something that we will be looking at our board meeting, so to keep it open. But I would also like an idea of what y'all are thinking as drivers.
I'll start with you, Tom.
Okay. The drivers that I've talked to, most of them feel like it should be their normal hourly rate. The simple reason is what Peggy says is true. You know, you might drive an hour and a half to Louisville to Southern High School or whatever and sit there for 2 hours and then drive back. But you're away from your family. You are on the job. So if your job rate is whatever, then that's what they feel they should be paid. There's still just about any other company that I know of, if you're on the job, you're paid a rate for that job because you're away from your family and you're on the job. So that's what the drivers are feeling. They don't want to go overboard, but they just feel like that they should be paid their normal hourly rate.
Yeah, just remember though, when the board looks at it, we're only given allocated so much transportation money per ADA. And we do a lot of fundraising to cover. Before the pandemic, we always used the transportation money and then a whole lot more. I mean, it's very expensive to take all those trips, and you know, if it gets right down to it, it could cause us, it could cause us not to have as many trips. So that's always a factor in it as well. That's the other side of that piece.
Yeah. You have to look at all sides. Yes.
And my comment on it, we talked to the board, as a board, we talked about it. We couldn't do hourly rate and then have people grandfathered in. Where, you know, we would have to have a concrete selection of people actually rotating, because now you're guaranteeing so many people, you know, if you think if people want drivers want trips then, they're going to want it even more now. Whenever you talk about that. So, you know, with all that in consideration, you know, we do want to see something in place with the rotation, and we understand that there are drivers that have committed a lot of time, and we appreciate everything they've done over the years to earn where they're at right now. And it's something that we will talk about for sure. I don't see it being an hourly rate. However, the $13.50 is something that probably could be changed. So, but we do have to look at the whole picture, fundraising, how much can be afforded and all that, and the need, you know, if it gets to a point where we don't have anybody driving trips, that's a lot different than a lot of people wanting the trips as well.
And one of my main concerns is when you take a child, you take them to Louisville and they see something that they've never seen before, it brightens their eyes and opens their future even that much more. So when they're in Louisville or Lexington or wherever, seeing these factories or seeing these zoos or whatever, it really opens that sight up and makes them even want to learn that much more in order to be in that situation or whatever down the road. So you have to look at all aspects, especially for a child that's going to have to go out and the parents do the fundraising in order to get the money for that trip. Because if they don't have a trip, they don't get to go anywhere. And I know there's still people in Lebanon that have never, ever in their lifetime left Lebanon. So they have no clue as to what's out there. And I have been as far as Africa and Belize, so there is a lot out there. And we have a lot to offer compared to those places. So there's a lot to take in. Anybody else?
I need to bring up a new, can I bring up a new concern?
Always listen. A concern that I had, as well as some other driver's assistants, was we look into us as assistants, at least the driver's assistants, having a more comprehensive training, maybe like with scenarios or discussion time, either, periodically, twice a year or something, just some more detailed training in regards to handling behaviors. And I don't know how to say it, in the right way, but like, just, I know we do our training, but it's like everything's shoved into time and then, everybody's looking at their watch, ready to go. And, are they really grasping what we're hearing, And so maybe that would help because we want to, I hope we as driver's assistants want to, better as you said, for the children. We want a pleasant ride for everyone. That's should be our importance. And I don't know who doesn't believe that the moon affects children, but I'm sorry, right on a school bus, and it does, or the rain, In having those understandings of, kids are gonna be kids sometimes, but, they also have to, wear the mask and sit in their seats and not throw things out the window, we have to, there's that big spectrum in that thing. So is there a training that we could maybe look at doing that would help us better understand, is what I'm trying to say, I guess, that. And also on these bus rules, I'm thinking perhaps we should revisit those. I know every bus has those in, but I've had like children still not understand those simple rules. And especially one that pertains to same behavior on the buses in the classroom. And I'm like, the bus isn't a classroom. It's a whole different ballgame. There is no, can I go to the bathroom? You have a whole different situation and you're stuck in a seat crammed with somebody else. And, and you can talk, they're just different things. So maybe we need to possibly revisit those expectations to make them clear. I know Tracy's talked about that needs to be but it's different on every bus. And are the kids really understand? Do they even know what respect means? They don't. I'll say things to kids and they're like, what does that mean? And I'm thinking, middle school or, at the Knights Academy and you don't know what. So it is a struggle, but do we understand, we're just assuming that they understand, but we need to understand that they may not really understand.
Yeah.
So just kind of those things was just thoughts that I had.
And I think what a lot of that could fall under is some of that PBIS that we talked about and no behavior thing. Probably the biggest thing we run into right now is, drivers are on 183-day contract. By the time you take your 8-hour update, which carries 4 of our days, we probably have, 2 full days or 8 hours. So by the time we do our online trainings that are required with our bloodborne pathogens and all those other things, there's probably at least another two days of required training. We don't have a lot of flexibility in there. Last year we did with all the days that, we had. And I hope it's not gonna be the case this year by any means, everybody. Nobody wants to go back to that. But if we do want to be able to do something like that, it may be something where the board would need to approve or allow us to have an opportunity for a paid day of training. And we've kind of got those built in right now with our staff development days. I know one's coming up on October the 11th. I feel like that would probably be short notice to get approved and put something of the quality it needs to be in that short amount of time of the training. But we also have one in January that right now, our 8-hour update kind of accounts for those 2 days and drivers aren't always expected to attend. But with the approval of an additional day for our drivers, that is something we could organize and would be an excellent opportunity at that time to either put something together in-house or with Megan, Marion, Martin, the lady we've worked with through CKEC, to maybe be available to come down and work with some of our drivers and our driver assistants as well. But the additional time would be a factor unless we have, an NTI day or something that opens up a day for us to do some of those trainings. That would be the only limitation I might see with that right now.
I can speak from the professional development side for the district that we do have federal funding for, professional development. Bus drivers, DAs, they are all part of our staff, so if that is something, we don't want to add another day, but, we can look into federal funds to pay for, say, 2 times a year that, they want to do that, or if they want them to go to the positive behavior support, so we can make that happen.
Sounds like a happy dance, as my granddaughter said. Anybody else? It's about past that time, so, what I was thinking, if this is a possible, maybe looking at every 2 to 3 months, 3 months out, or something like that for our next meeting, so that it gives us time, with everything going on in Marion County right now, it gives us a little more time to work on some things, so, say 3 months out, would that be okay for everybody as far as our next meeting? I'll get Kim to work on a date.
Can I address something else just real quick? We are having repeated behavior issues on the Marion County Middle School shuttle buses. Something's gonna have to be done. We're gonna lose drivers. We've already lost one because of that he's taking a retirement, and that pushed him over the edge. So if this keeps going, what are we gonna do? Ms. Mattingly is, I know she's up to her eyeballs and all this stuff. We've got route drivers that says she's the greatest thing since sliced bread. She takes care of stuff. It's just the shuttle buses that we have problems with, that's the main issue.
That's going from Night Academy to the middle school. Is that what you're talking about, the shuttle bus?
It's the
Middle school.
middle school, Marion County Middle, shuttle buses.
Oh, that right, when we get on the buses.
Yes.
They are.
And here's kind of how that works. From Marion County Middle, we have buses that come basically to the Night Academy, that come to the elementary school, the different areas. And those students are basically transported to different parts. We have a shuttle bus that goes to Calvary, they're dispersed to the buses that go to Bradfordsville, that end of the county. We have buses that go, shuttle buses that go to Lebanon Elementary. Those students are then get on the local buses that serve the greater Lebanon area in that regard. We have another shuttle bus that comes from, we got one from Calvert from Marion Middle that goes to Glasscock, and it takes the students out, what is that lane? Yeah, more like toward Gravel Switch, but more out toward Radio Station Road and Horan Lane and kind of that area. So that's kind of what we're looking at. And it's really that 15-minute ride that we've got from the middle school to that. And I think it's just the number and the mix of students. One thing we try to do this year is add an additional shuttle bus from Marion Middle to Lebanon Elementary in both the morning and the afternoons. We basically try to divide that into 6th and 7th grade. My philosophy there was divide and conquer. One of those buses has 2 DAs on it to kind of help monitor that behavior. And by lessening the number of students they're carrying, it allows them, number one, to monitor more closely. And it's a safer environment because that bus was getting relatively crowded last year. The other bus, some days it goes well. Other days I think it's just a mix of students on there that can make it a little bit more challenging, to be honest with you. And those buses are relatively full. I mean, they've got a good number of students on. So I don't have all the answers on there. The one to Lebanon Elementary, we were able, like I said, to add that additional bus, but some of the others, I'm still working on some solutions, but there's not other buses going in those areas that gives us that amount of flexibility.
So are we filling out conduct forms and all that in order to work, and parents or reactions from parents?
Some are supportive. I mean, bottom line, Mr. Mills probably spends more time watching videos than he would like. I promise you that. But the good thing about the videos and the cameras is black and white. You can see exactly who did what for the majority of the time, and it allows us to be able to address those behaviors, accurately and swiftly. But it does take time with the number we're watching to be able to watch the video, download the video, send it to the principal. The principal have time to watch the video. We don't always know who the kids are when we're watching videos with the driver not there with us all the time either. Sometimes it slows the process a little bit, but I think we are getting the accountability, but it may not be happening that day or the next day. Sometimes it may be a couple of days with all the steps that are involved in that. But I think they are being supportive. It's just sometimes with the number of kids, and it doesn't seem like it's the same kids. But we're to the point now where we've done warnings. We're starting with 3-day bus suspensions. Next step would be 5-day bus suspensions, and that's getting parents' attention more. Some of those are scheduled to return. So we had an issue with last week after a 3-day suspension. Now we'll see if behaviors are better, or next time will it be an extended vacation off the bus, unfortunately.
Do we have?
I was just gonna say, I do think a very critical piece is gonna be the positive behavior piece of making sure that we're teaching those expectations consistently. And then the other piece would be, are there some ways to incentivize that bus route a little bit too, where we're making that a positive as opposed to just a consequential piece with kids? I think that could be an important piece to look at.
Do we have DAs on all those shuttle buses?
Yes, we do on all
I don't know what the answer is right now, but we can work on it, look at it, and hope nobody retires or quits. Anybody else have anything?
I just want to add just one little quick thing. I think the bus matrix has helped, but lunch detention is not on here. So we would like to see lunch detention in the middle school for a bus matrix not being used. Because those they have to stay away from their friends.
Well, they're not missing instruction. It's a way to.
You want it off though, right?
Lunch detention is like a slap in the face of bus drivers.
You think,
It's
that
not on here.
where
We
is
don't
it?
want it on here.
Okay.
It's not on here. We don't want to see lunch detention. We
Okay, I
have
didn't think
kids.
I saw it.
No, and we have kids getting on the bus that say, well, I got lunch detention.
Oh,
So it's happening, but
It's happening.
Okay,
We don't
gotcha.
want it to happen. The drivers do not want to hear lunch detention. They hate that.
Okay.
So it's not on here, so we don't, I'm just saying, we don't want it. So,
I mean,
They think of a lot of worse things.
the main thing I see on here is bus suspension.
that's all we have on here.
Yeah, so, I mean, is that,
We have
and-
one
and-
conference and then the rest.
and
of
there's
it,
really
everything
no
else is
other-
on us.
And I can tell you all from watching videos, I mean, since we implemented this, I mean, the video watching has went down. But it's like we said, we still have issues with, it's all mainly the transfer of buses from Mary Middle. And it's all, a lot of it is the same kid, you know, but it's, what do you do? You know, we need help with the answer on that, so.
How long has this one been used?
It just started.
Probably January of last year, somewhere around there.
We approved it in January.
Yeah, so that's what I was thinking. And it had to be updated. You know, some of the things were assigned seats, some of the different, the bottom of that, that's kind of the
This is a
expectation.
revised.
This is a revised, so we kind of cleaned it up. I think you have a copy of the old one there behind that, right there. But some
Yeah,
things
this one I was
that-
aware of. When did we start using this one?
This one probably in January.
January, okay.
And it just, beforehand, bus drivers could assign seats, could do some of that, but now everybody basically has an assigned seat due to COVID. So some of the strategies that they had used and were using in the past are a little bit more limited. Now, they still can move them up to the front if they need to, but everybody has an assigned seat that's not, you can change where that assigned seat is to put it more close to you or monitor more better, but, that was just one of the things we kind of looked at, and it's why it was adjusted.
I'm assuming a couple boards again, you with us.
With probably with the 504 years, man. So that's a note I've got in here on my note.
It would be nice if we could have some administrators to ride the shuttle bus. It's a 15-minute trip. We'll bring you in and we'll take you back if we have to, you know, but if somebody could just ride the bus from the schools that knows those kids and knows those kids that have those IEPs or whatever, and knows how to deal with them better than the bus driver or the DA, that would help a lot.
And, you know, one of the issues I know we had was when we had a sub DA on there. I mean, they don't know the kids as well as the regular DA. So that can complicate situations a little bit more as well. Yes, ma'am. Like when you got a subclassroom teacher, they, you know, you don't know the kids, it makes it harder. And you don't know where to kind of focus your energy, I guess.
Is that a set bus driver though for this one that we're talking about? Because I thought I heard somebody say rotating.
No,
That's not-
These are set drivers.
This
these are
one's a
set drivers.
yes.
The only thing that will rotate is like our shuttles from,
Okay, I just.
and that's probably a 2-minute trip at best, going from, just kind of rotating, taking the kids from the Light Academy to the ATC to the high school, because we've got so many different students taking classes in different places that those are just, and generally, they're not under long enough to where we have, you know,
But we still do.
we still do, but they're not generally.
That
that's
2-minute
not the
trip is
big-
still good.
Okay, I'm looking at my watch.
I got
So we're gonna look at this is September, October, December for our next meeting sometime, if possible, due to whatever comes up. So right now, we'll look at sometime in December.
I do have a question on that. If we're gonna do it at 3 months out, is it just gonna be an hour meeting? Because we may have a lot more to talk about in 3
Well,
months.
we could increase it to 2 hours. Okay?
I'm just joking.
Is that okay with you, Joy?
Oh, that's fine. I was gonna say, if something comes up, we
Yeah.
can have one beforehand. before
Okay,
that.
just reach out.
Yes,
If
please.
we're to the point where we have enough issues, we need to talk about it, let's keep an open dialogue amongst everybody. And reach out to us at any point and say, hey, we got something we can talk about. And then if so, we might be meeting in 6 weeks, you know, I mean, just, we'll plan for 3 months, but let's keep communication open.
We're very open, we really are. We want this to work. Anybody else? I think that's it. Or should we say adjourn?
Adjourn.